So I'll go back to say, the minute you get your first job, you should be thinking about the future. I was blessed with a mom and a dad who, when I got my first job, 16 years of age, bagging groceries, my mom said to me, "So what are you doing about saving for the future?" And I went, "Mom, I just want money, gas money, so I can drive around and have fun with my friends." And so she instilled upon me real early, and my dad did too, to say, you need to be focused on the future. And so I started when I was 16, and then any job that I had since then, I saved.
Hello, listeners. Thank you so much for joining us for Bartelle's Money Talk. Today we have a specialist in retirement, Mr. David Buck. Thank you so much for joining us, and I would like for you to introduce yourself, Mr. Buck.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here for what I think is a really important topic, no matter what age you are. My name is David Buck, and I am the founder of the Infinity Lifestyle Design Program. And I help people in two groups or categories. I help people who are in career trying to figure out, how can I use my time better? So I work with individuals, businesses, and teams. But an also equally important part of my business is to help individuals and couples, particularly, who are thinking about heading into retirement. What are you going to do with all this extra time that's been given to you if you choose to go a traditional retirement route where you decide to stop working? So I work with the individuals and couples, and then also work with financial advisors to work directly with their clients to make sure that the financial strategy aligns with the lifestyle strategy.
And you are definitely qualified to talk to us about this because David is also a certified retirement coach. Is that correct?
That's correct. So it's on the non-financial side of things. I
Okay.
work with individuals and couples to be able to help them understand that if you're going to plan a lifestyle, why not take the time to tie back to that financial strategy that you've developed so that you're able to make the most of the plan? Or on the flip side, you don't think, wow, I can do all these amazing things, and have to have your financial advisor tell you, well, I don't know if you have the money there or not. So I'm a big proponent that my clients have a financial advisor, a financial professional that they work with, just simply because in my own personal journey, our financial advisors told us so many things that we were never aware of that has helped us understand how we can plan our lifestyle out.
So, at what age do you recommend people start planning?
So I'll go back to say, the minute you get your first job, you should be thinking about the future. I was blessed with a mom and a dad who, when I got my first job, 16 years of age, bagging groceries, my mom said to me, "So what are you doing about saving for the future?" And I went, "Mom, I just want money, gas money, so I can drive around and have fun with my friends." And so she instilled upon me real early, and my dad did too, to say, you need to be focused on the future. And so I started when I was 16, and then any job that I had since then, I saved.
That is wonderful. So I need you to express to our listeners how important it is to plan early because it's Bartelle's Money Talk, and that's what we talk about. And it's going to be very, very difficult for you to retire with a purposeful retirement if you don't have any money. So, can you discuss how important it is to plan financially for retirement?
Absolutely. And I think I personally went through phases. So when you first started out, I did it to honor my parents to start out with. Even my first job after college, I had my parents in
Hmm.
my head going, save for the future. And I really didn't have any concept of what that meant. It just said, okay, I'll put a portion. I did 10% my entire career. I stuck with that number. And then the other thing that you have to realize is if you work for an employer, many employers have a matching program involved in that. And I was like, oh, wow, I get an extra, whatever, 4 to 6%, depending on what your company might offer, but I get that extra amount. So early on, it was just, okay, I put it away. And then getting married, that kind of amped things up a little bit as my wife and I kind of discussed what we're doing. And then eventually at some point, it's kind of like I switched jobs, and then the prior job said, you got to take this money and do something with it. I don't know. I used whatever the formula is. So that was where my wife and I first introduced to financial professional and the wealth of knowledge that they have. So I can't emphasize to your listeners enough that you start on your own, that's great, but eventually somewhere along the line, seek that professional who's going to then able to guide you. And I went through a phase where I was really into how did we, so every year, what did I do? What did my portfolio perform? And that went on for a long period of time until I hit really around my 50th birthday. And we were sitting with our financial advisor. It was a new one because our previous one had retired. And so we had this new relationship. And he said, look, hey, you did great. You did 3 points better than the market average. And I said, what does that even mean?
Right.
So I said, I guess that's good, but should I be performing 5 or 6%? Am I saving enough? Ultimately, do I have enough to retire? And that financial advisor couldn't answer that question. He was so focused on just the performance of it that we ended up switching to a plan and an advisor who was like asked deeper questions. What's happening in your life? And then they were able to better tell us you're on a good pathway, or you guys better save a little bit more because you have this lifestyle you want to live in retirement that's probably not going to meet this plan that we're developing.
That's David, that's impactful because a lot of the young generations, they probably don't know that, but I do think we need to touch on this too. You manage and help couples, and you yourself, you're married, you've transitioned. How important is it to have a spouse that has a similar thinking that you do when it comes to retirement and money?
That's a critical part of the equation. So when my wife and I first got married, I was in sales and I worked remotely, and so we decided we were going to keep, quote, it was easier to keep separate bank accounts. And after about 6 months of that, we were kind of like, this just doesn't feel right. And that was an eye-opening for us because once we started to talk more about finances together instead of separately, that led to sometimes very real cool discussions, sometimes some challenging discussions. But over time, what it does is it establishes that trust you need in a relationship. And it also helps you both understand, because to steal a line from an old boss of mine, none of us is as smart as all of us. And we found that when we worked together well, we were more apt to make better financial decisions as a couple than when we decided, I'll just kind of do my own thing and she did hers.
So that's very impactful because what I'm finding now is that a lot of couples, they do their thing with their money. He does his thing with their money, and then they'll divvy up the money together to pay the bills. But in order for you to have a pretty successful retirement, it's better for you to work together and build that trust that you're talking about.
Absolutely. And I will say, in my over 3 decades of marriage, never once did we either challenge each other about why we spent something on what we did, because we normally talked about it ahead of time. So there wasn't any surprises like, so why did this 75-inch TV show up? Well, because I wanted it and it came out of my account.
Right.
No, because those decisions were made together. And in many cases, it wasn't the other saying to the other, no, you can't do this. It's more of, help me understand why this is important to you. And do we both understand the impact if we choose to make this purchase? What does it do to our budget? What does it do to our long-term or short-term goals?
Right. And that's why I'm so glad that you are here with me today, because the ultimate goal of our YouTube channel is to help individuals have a better financial future, even a better future and now a good present time. And so the topic that you're talking about, retirement, is so important. And I cannot stress enough how important it is to do what you say. Start as soon as you get a job. Don't spend all of your money on everything. You have to think about tomorrow. And so what I would like for you to also, you had mentioned that when you and your wife started talking to a professional, there were things that you didn't know. Could you maybe share a couple of things that you didn't know that you wish you would have known that could help our listeners?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll start first with, as it really impacts it as you get further along into your portfolio. So let's say early on, first of all, I got an education on how the market works. Because if you've got a good financial professional, they're going to tell you why they're making some of the decisions that they're making. And they're also going to give you an education as to how your money works within the market. And I think that's important, that you're educated to understand that as things change in the marketplace, they're going to change and adapt accordingly to that. Then as you get further on your financial journey, what can happen depending on how your portfolio is worked out is a financial professional will help understand potential tax advantages that might have. You might choose to invest on your own in a particular way that might negatively impact you as you go to pay your taxes every year. So financial professionals will help you navigate on their end as much as they can to put your portfolio in a position that you're not going to be negatively impacted by too high taxes, if that's the case. And then as you get to where I'm at, towards the latter part of, as you're looking at retirement, there are so many rules and regulations around how your money is to be distributed to you as you choose to go through that in retirement. I don't know how I would understand how to navigate that without a financial professional to tell me, because today's rules are not going to be tomorrow's rules. So what is good in 2024 could radically change in 2025 and beyond. And unless you've got someone who lives that world and understands that world, you're probably not going to be able to understand everything.
Okay, and so that's good. And what we have been with our audience since we have been here is transparent. And I have to honestly say that I am not familiar with a retirement coach. So that's why also I knew it was very important to bring you on. And so because you are a certified retirement coach, at what point does someone reach out to you for help? And if you take someone on, what do you do to help them?
Thank you. So I would recommend that if you, whatever age you think you're going to retire, start 10 years before. So if you think I'm going to start at 65, start 10 years before. And the reason why is you first and foremost, when I work with clients, is I want them to define what is their purpose in life. And the reason why I do that is because when you go into retirement, no one asks you what you do for a living. That becomes, nobody cares if you're in a traditional retirement life. So I try to tell everybody, define your purpose now. It can include what you do in your career, but that becomes then your North Star to then guide how you want to live your life. So you can live through that filter, and everything that you choose to do, anything major, you say, does that tie back to my purpose? Is this going to accomplish my purpose? So that's an important element that I really push clients to do. But then what we take them through is this idea of understanding how to use their time. So to give you a perspective, if someone's working 48 hours a week right now, and they sleep 7 hours a night, that's 40% of your awake time is in a career, which itself brings a natural sense of structure. When you take that structure away, you have to find out what to do with 40% of the time that your eyes are open. And that can be very, very daunting for people when they realize they have to figure that out. So I take them through a series of exercises to develop what I call a lifestyle strategy to fill not only that 40%, but the other part of their life. So then they can have an adaptive strategy that they can change as they age. And if they're with a spouse or a partner, they're included together. So they develop their own unique plan, but then their together plan, again, that's adaptable so that as they go through life, they can make the most of it. And that's tied back to the financial strategy. So there's realistic goals that are established. So somebody's not saying, hey, I want my mountain chalet in the Swiss Alps. And really, they can only afford a 2-week Airbnb in the hills of North Carolina. So there's those choices that they have to make. So it's realistic. And so through that, then they get to merge the financial reality with the life that they want.
I like that. And so when you talked about setting goals, is that one of the ways that people can plan to have a purposeful retirement?
That's actually revolves around that. So once you develop your purpose, then my process is to take an individual to do what's a bucket or a vision list.
Mm-hmm.
That is where you write down all the things that you've always wanted to do, as crazy as they sound and as nutty as you might think. You put that down. That's the fun things that you can do. One that's on my bucket list is I want to hang glide. I want to try hang gliding. That's on
Yeah.
my bucket list. Now, I may never get there, may never do
Mm-hmm.
it. It's out
Mm-hmm.
there, because if to make that happen, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
have to invest time and money to do that. So once you do your bucket or vision list, then you begin from that list, you create what I call long-term goals. Those are 2 to 4 years
Mm-hmm.
where you know it's going to take me time to plan things out, to figure out what I want to do. Then those move to annual goals that says, okay, I'm ready to move forward. I'm going to get this done in this year, that I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
figure it out. And then you have short-term goals. Those are 3 to 6 months, things that pop up, late breaking things that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
All of those continuously work in tandem as you go through. And you don't have to wait till retirement to do this. You can do this now. But you do that as a continuous cycle as you go through your life.
And so that can make it a little bit more excitement, because when you mention structure, when you go from structure to retirement, it's unbelievable. But I can relate to that, because sometimes, like if we are on vacation and have our vacation days, I'm like, okay, so what am I going to do? Because I really haven't planned out those days off. So I cannot imagine having an indefinite amount of time and not having some type of structure or some type of plan as to what I'm going to be doing. So I'm glad you
And
mentioned that.
well, and people, I challenge people, because a lot will say, hey, I have all this extra time, I can figure it out. And there's two things I'll respond to that is, number one, if you manage your time well while you're in your career, wonderful. That doesn't mean you're going to manage it well when the career's not there. And then the second thing is, if you don't manage your time well now, it doesn't improve anymore when you're in post career. I live in a 55 plus community, and where I live is, I call it my great laboratory, because I see people living wonderful and amazing retirement lives. But I also see, I have neighbors who I watch to see if the garbage can goes out, because we rarely see them, and they have chosen to self isolate because they haven't figured out what to do with their. So I would rather to help people design that retirement life where they're kind of like, I always have something to do, than for you to wake up one day and say, it's more comfortable for me not to engage with others because I'm so used to being alone. I don't want that.
Oh, I wouldn't either, because being alone is very lonely, and you miss out on so many things in life when you are alone every day, all the time.
Certainly. Yes.
Well, nowadays, and we blame it on inflation, we blame it on the degree choices, but what would you recommend to parents who would like to retire, but they're sacrificing themselves to supplement the income of adult children?
And that is I want to say it's from maybe AARP. I want to say that right now there are about 1 in 10 adults are taking care of their children. That's only going to increase. And also the flip side, there are going to be many more people heading into retirement who their parents are also retired. So there's multiple generations in a family that are retired. And so in some cases, the baby boom generation might be sandwiched in between having to take care of kids and having to take care of their parents, which can be
Wow.
an extra while you want to live your retirement life. So I would say that for parents who are finding they're having to help take care of their adult children, you've got to put some structure around what this means. You both have to sit down, both parties, and say, what's the plan for you to get back on your and independent again, and set that strategy up. And as you, as quote, the parent, have to say, I can support you X amount, but we've got to get a pathway to get you to be independent. And then I think the second thing you have to look at is not the end of the world. This is where you have to draw in your financial professional, your financial advisor, to say, hey, I'm having to take care of my kids now. Help me understand the impact of this, because you still might be able to retire. It might be only a year or two later. So don't look at it as an either or proposition. But if you aren't telling your financial professional about what you're doing, they can't help you and navigate through that. So communication is good with your children and with any professional help that you have.
Okay. Now, when customers or clients come to you, sometimes you have to say, no, you're not ready for me.
I will definitely say no if they haven't talked to a financial professional, because I said it's not going to be worth both your or my time for you to be able to, for us to develop a lifestyle strategy. If they push back and say, I've got my own system, don't worry about it, Dave, I'll ask some questions. But overall, they have to understand and be on a financial process and plan that will allow them to achieve some sense of financial independence for what that is.
Okay.
The other avenue where I will challenge back to a client not to work with them is if they have a very, very negative perception of I'm never going to retire. I don't want to retire. I said, I'm going to ask time of you to go through this process. And if you're not ready to invest that time because either you've had negative view of retirement or it's just something you don't want to have to deal with, then again, don't waste your time with me or your money. Wait until as such time you're in a good position that you're open to talking.
Okay. Well, because of all of the specialties that you have, I think that we also need to touch on a little bit because our listeners are in their working years. And one of the things that you also focus on is helping people enjoy the life that they are living now while they're in their career. Can you give some advice or some words of wisdom to the listeners who are currently working now to where they can make the best of their time?
So I am not a fan of the term work-life balance. I think it's very hard to maintain balance in life. I'd ask you to look at work-life flexibility. And what I mean by that is there are going to be times in your life when you're in your career, you're going to have to devote a lot more proportion of your time to the career just by the nature of how that is. On the flip side, there could be a time in your life, if you're working now with an aging parent or a child, somebody gets sick, and your time and attention naturally is going to be to your personal life. So what I try to encourage people to do is invest time when you need to intensely in either one, but build relationship capital in both sides of you. Tell your family, hey, for the next couple of weeks, I got a project here. I'm really going to need to work late. I need to do this. At the same time, if you're working for an employer, let your employer know if you have hey, listen, I have a child with a chronic condition that sometimes requires me to focus on that. And so you build the capital up in both sides of your life. So if you have to flex more personal, your employer or your personal life understands that, and vice versa. And then the second thing that I would do for people real quickly is distractions are the number one time management challenge we all have.
Yes,
we all have it.
I do.
It's my number one. It's my number one challenge, and I'm supposed to be the time management guy. So what I would tell people to do is the biggest single tool of our distractions is our phone. Provide some discipline for yourself around your phone. You don't need to be on there all the time. The Facebook post you did today is not necessarily going to go viral, so you don't need to look at it every 10 minutes to see who else liked it. Put some structure around that too, because if you can get your distractions under control, you'll find other challenges are not as pronounced.
Wonderful. And I'm pretty sure you can give some advice on this too. So I can't even let you fly the coop without us talking about this too.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. We have listeners who may have school-age children. They may have high school children. Some parents will go overboard in trying to save for college and trying to buy the car, trying to give them this good life and not really think about our future. Can you give some words of advice for parents who are trying to maybe save for college or even considering taking out loans so that their children can go to college?
So I'll tell you what my wife and I did, which worked well for us, is as our kids got older, and particularly when they entered into high school, we saved. In addition to doing our financial saving, we also looked at saying, what do we think we need to provide the kids for college? And we landed on a hard number. So when our kids were in high school, we said, this is how much we're going to be able to give you every year. If you want to, and that usually covered the state school, so they could go to a state school, and that pretty much covered everything. But if they wanted to go someplace different or someplace outside of that, then the onus was on them to find ways, whether it was scholarships, whether it was whatever, a job they were going to have to work, but they had skin in the game. So
good.
that during that process, so my one son, he went to a state school, and between scholarships he got and what we gave, he went through all 4 years of college, didn't owe a dime.
Wonderful.
My younger son chose to go to an out-of-state school and ended up getting some loans, but he paid those back. But that was a decision he ultimately made. And we told him, he said, okay, that's all you're getting. So I would just tell everybody, put it in your budget, and whatever you think you can help your kids. If you can help your kids all the way through, wonderful. But don't put yourself in jeopardy at all, because if your kids are good scholastically, and they work hard enough, there is opportunities for them to get scholarships, grants, and things like that that will help supplement their education.
Now that was impactful. Thank you, because I just don't want people to sacrifice themselves and their future for their children, because ultimately you don't want your children to end up having to take care of you. So to stop that, put it in your budget.
That is great advice too. That my wife and I are very passionate about what the choices we make, that if something happens to either one or both of us, whether we're cognitively impaired or something major happens, that our children don't have to pull money out of their own pocket to pay for it. At the very least, they'll be able to make decisions with the resources that are left over to make sure that we're taken care of.
That is so beautiful. And so you have a book that I think was released in April.
It was. Thank you. So the Time Optimized Life, and I like time optimization versus time management. Time management to me tends to be reactive, that people like the last thing that they get is the first thing they tend on doing. And that might be fine unless they have a tendency to forget about the 3 other important things they were supposed to do that day. So time optimization flips the script. It makes you look at time. How am I going to proactively plan to be able to use my time better? That's the premise of the book. And my lovely wife wrote a chapter in the book as well. And so I try to bring in not only my view of things, but she wrote a chapter, and I feature 6 other different people who are important to me in my life, who have shown through their own example how you can follow their example to be a better user of your time.
Perfect. That is so good. And before we end our conversation, I just need you to let the listeners know, since you have experience working with couples, what is your take on going into retirement with debt?
Boy, I would say if you're going to go into retirement with debt, it needs to be predictable into the budget that you do. And so many times people don't do what I call a retirement budget, because the costs and structures that you have in retirement are a lot different in your quote in career life. So I would say we are big proponents of the only debt I have is the mortgage payment that I have on my house, and that's the way it's going to stay. So I would say at that point, if you're like you're going to carry debt, then sit down with your financial advisor and say, what, if any, how should I prioritize this debt? And my whole deal is go in with none if you.
Okay. Well, I like that. So now can you tell the audience how they can find you, and tell us the name of the book again and where that's located?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the time and opportunity. I always like this because this time flew by. So I at least had a good time. So thank you. So you can find me at my website is infinitylifestyledesign.com. Again, infinitylifestyledesign.com. And right there at the top of the page, you can click on a link to download chapter 1 of the book, The Time Optimized Life. So if you're kind of like, what is this whole thing about? Hey, read chapter 1. And if you like it, then there's a link. It's available online at where all the major booksellers are, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Books A Million, you name it. You can get it at any one of those. And I would just challenge you on whatever you choose to do. It is not a quick fix. Give yourself time and invest time to improve your time. And once you do that, you'll find a lot of other things in your life place.
David, thank you so much. This has been so heartfelt. It's needed for our world. We're in an election year, and everyone needs to hear this and calm down. So thank you so much for joining us on Bartelle's Money Talk, and I look forward to talking to you again. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Okay. Retirement is so important. And we are here because we want you to have a good life now and we want you to have a good life later. So take what David Buck said seriously. Start planning for your retirement now. Start 10 years out. Don't spend everything that you have now. Don't live for the moment. Yeah, we may not be here to see our retirement, but in the event that you are, you need to save for it so that you can have a retirement that you can enjoy. That's purposeful. If you enjoyed the content, I ask that you would like, share, and subscribe, and join us again here next Sunday for new content. Thank you so much for watching and supporting us. We definitely appreciate each and every one of you. God bless you. Until next time.